Hey rum lovers, welcome back. Today we're diving into a true love or hate it cocktail. This is the Jungle Bird. If there is one tiki cocktail that we could describe as the Marmite of tiki cocktails, it is this. You either love it or you really do hate it. And typically you hate it because of the Campari. And it's that thing, if you could get past the bitter notes of that Campari, the chances are this is going to turn into one of your most favourite tiki cocktails. But if you really don't like Campari, if you really can't give it a fair shake, then the chances are you're going to look at the recipe and go, no, that is not for me. Now, what I find really interesting about Campari is that it does get a lot of hate. You know, it's not hate, but people just don't like it because of those bitterness notes. And yet in the UK, the Aperol Spritz is one of the biggest cocktails, definitely around the summertime. Aperol is huge. And in the grand scheme of things, there isn't actually that much difference between Aperol and Campari. Yes, Campari has a higher ABV. Yes, Campari is a little bit more bitter, but bitterer, more bitter, more bitter, more bitter. I'm going for that. But in the grand scheme of things, these are both bitter aperitifs. So I do think the Jungle Bird really does deserve more love than what it gets. I'm firmly Team Jungle Bird. Hopefully you will be too after this video. So today I've got a slightly different debunking video for you because I've made this cocktail plenty of times over the past 2 years. On camera, off camera. I feel personally I've debunked it enough. So what I'm going to do instead is show you a few tasty riffs that you can put onto this cocktail to either take it in a slightly different direction or to truly elevate it into a cocktail that you absolutely adore. I can't stop drinking this. This is, mate, one of my favourite cocktails. I adore this. So before I dive in, question for you Jungle Bird enthusiasts, for you guys that love a Jungle Bird, that make it regularly, you know, maybe make it once a month or so. What rum do you use? I will get on to talking about rum when I show you how to make this cocktail at face value, but I want to know what rum you use. What do you automatically think of? I know what the recipe books say. I want to know your opinions, okay? Whether it's a 1 rum, 2 rum blend, maybe even a 3 rum blend. Get involved in the comments below. Now look, when it comes to the Jungle Bird, I really don't think it matters what website you look at, what book you look at, if you've got any of these books. The recipes are all pretty similar. This is a modern day cocktail invented in created in 1978. So it's not a cocktail from like the 40s and 50s that kind of needs bringing up. By the late sort of 70s, we had evolved enough from that sort of just prohibition era. We had evolved enough to have some new age ingredients. So, and this cocktail hasn't really got anywhere to go when we're looking at ingredients. So as I say, I don't think it matters which recipe you look at. It's purely, I think it's just down to the level of pineapple juice, and I think it's down to the rums that you decide to use. I think it's that simple. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to make you my recipe, because I do actually drink this quite a bit, and I think I've debunked it for my own personal ratios and the rums that I use. I haven't got the rums here. I'll talk through the rums in a second. But I'm going to make my version, and then we're going to get on some fun riffs that you can do afterwards. So again, let's just quickly dive into this. Shaking versus flash blending. I do believe, for me, the flash blending does give it a better aeration. It does give you the pineapple juices more frothy. And with shaking, with flash blending, you kind of control the dilution to a certain extent. You kind of hit that dilution early doors, and it sort of maintains, when you serve it, it kind of maintains that level. Whereas when you shake and then you serve it over crushed ice, or just shake and dump, dirty dump with that, it's hard to explain, but you just kind of get a different level of dilution. So for me, I've done this experiments on live shows, and I've made it plenty of times before. For me, it definitely is a flash blended cocktail. So first ingredient is 22.5 ml of Campari, 15 ml, half an ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice. And then we're going for 15 ml, half an ounce of sugar syrup. And then your pineapple juice. I talk about, this is just a branded version. This week I've gone to a different supermarket. That's all it is, but it's 100% pressed pineapple juice. If you're in the US, think of this as unsweetened. This is just pineapples pressed down. That's all it is. And I always firmly believe that that's the way you should go for pineapple juice, because it just does taste better. I can get into various different discussions about lime juice and pre-squeezed and all that, but with pineapple juice, it is all about fresh pressed pineapple juice. So I want for my recipe, I cut it down slightly from stuff like Beach Bum. I'm going 90 ml, so 2 lots of 45 ml. Now let's turn the attention to the rums and what rum should you use. Now I've made this cocktail numerous times. I'm perfectly happy with my my rum selection here. I don't think I need to experiment anymore. I've found this and I'm happy with this. This is what I've got. When you look at the recipes in Beach Bum Berry and Smuggler's Cove online, they all loosely based around the same thing. A lot of the times it says dark rum, Caribbean rum. A lot of times it says dark Jamaican rum. Now, what is this? As you go down this tiki journey, what does dark rum actually mean? In my head, because I come from this modern day approach, I kind of class that as a dark rum, and that is a dark Jamaican rum. But actually, what it might be back in the 70s, even 60s, 70s and 80s, what it might be is just, the categorization of an aged rum. We tend to call them aged rums now and refer to those as dark rums, whereas are dark rums actually black rums? It's very much open interpretation. You could go down a real history note and look at documentation from around about that time. That really doesn't interest me. I just kind of like to translate things how I would in a modern day and kind of make things tasty. So with that, I would probably naturally go towards a darker rum, a black rum in that sense. But I do kind of like the Jamaican vibes that it brings. However, one of the little tests I did probably about 6 months ago now was actually to combine that with an agricole. And I've kind of been playing about. I did go Worthy 109 with something like Nissan, a Martinique agricole rum. But then I kind of laid on, or sort of sat on this, kind of Worthy Park Select is my sort of Jamaican notes, my funky notes. But I kind of, the dark notes, but I absolutely love this with a bit of agricole coming through, is the Rum JM. Now, for me, I do a straight 30 ml, so it's 45 ml of rum in total in this cocktail. I do a 45 ml of the Worthy Park, and I do a 15 ml of the Rum JM. I'm not here to sort of tell you you're right or wrong with whatever rums you use, because I think this cocktail is very much open to interpretation. However, what I will say, out of all the sort of tests that I've done and the different rums that I've used, the only non-Jamaican rum that I really, really like in this cocktail is the Chairman's Reserve Legacy. But even then, I still think it misses that funk note from that. So for me, what I would probably do if I was going Legacy would actually do Legacy and then a bit of agricole in there to give it funk, or a little bit of highest Jamaican. I think it does kind of need that. But for me, I'm perfectly happy with these two. I think this cocktail absolutely sings with these two rums. So I'm going for 30 ml of Worthy Park Select, and I'm going for 15 ml of Rum JM Terroir Volcanique. And just sorry, if you don't know what that is, the Terroir Volcanique is, I can't go too in depth, but it's basically I treat it as a darker rum. It's aged with intentionally charred barrels, not longer aged, just kind of young aged without in heavily charred barrels. So I do use this as a dark rum, but a different style of dark rum, a kind of an agricole, funkier dark rum. Then I'm just going to whack in about 8 to 10 ounces of crushed ice, and then we're simply going to whack it on the spindle blender for about 5 seconds. Then it's just an open gated pour into your favourite sort of 14 to 16 ounce glass. And then I've just made that look pretty. Sprig of mint, cut one of my dried grapefruits in half, added a couple of extra chunky cubes of ice, and we've got the finished Jungle Bird. And honestly, I really absolutely love this cocktail. The ratios for me are bang on. If you really hate Campari, trust me, go with it. It's not that bitter with this. It kind of gives you that little bit of a bitter element, but it just beautifully balances the lime juice in there. The pineapple juice really comes through. I love my choice of rums. I get a little bit of Jamaican funkiness. I get a bit of sort of dark robustness coming out there, but I also get a little bit of agricole coming through there as well. It's not a white unaged agricole. It is an aged agricole. So you've, taken away that. But I just think this is a stunning, stunning cocktail in its own right. Once you find the rums that you absolutely adore with this, I think it's just a fantastic tiki cocktail. I really do. Seriously, I can't stop drinking this. This is fantastic. So now that we've made the cocktail, how can you go about riffing it up? How can you go about tuning it to your palate? Where do we start? So I think the first thing to start with is that Campari. I've loosely touched on it. I think the thing you could do, and it doesn't work for me, but I think the thing you could do is bring it down from 22.5 mil to 15 mil. It might not sound much, but 7.5 mil will make a dramatic difference. But it also makes a difference because you then lose that bitterness balance from the pineapple juice and the lime juice. So that's for me why it doesn't work. But I firmly want to emphasize the point that this cocktail, even that at 22.5 mil, isn't as bitter as what you might expect the Campari makes it. I want to get that clear. It just brings a lovely balance to the cocktail. Honestly, and because it's got pineapple juice in it, an Aperol Spritz is a lot more bitter than what the Jungle Bird is. A lot more, because you haven't got anything in an Aperol Spritz to sweeten it up. But as I brought it out at the start of the video, the other thing you could do is swap it to Aperol. As I say, for some unknown reason, Aperol has got a much bigger fan base, especially here in the UK because of the Aperol Spritz. I dare say if Campari, because they're the same people, Campari Group. If Campari had done a big push on a Campari Spritz, we might be talking slightly differently about Campari. But because Aperol is the drink of the summer here in the UK and probably around Europe as well, Aperol has that bigger thing. But at heart, yes, it is a lower ABV. Yes, it's not quite as bitter, but at heart, it is still a bitter spirit, a bitter liqueur. Now, I did speak at length about the rums as well previously, but that is another way you could go down. Do you know what really, really works well in here? It's a fun little twist. Is the pineapple, the Stiggins Fancy. Again, I've made that plenty of times before. I tell you what, a spiced rum works well in here as well. You could go down all these different little angles, and where, the spiced rum for me is back up here, the Goldstone spiced rum, which is like a dry spiced. It's just the rum with botanicals. There's no sugar in there to kind of balance them out, like a lot of spiced rums. Something like that, because you don't want any more sweetness. You could play about with the amount of sugar that you add. So the recipe has got 15 mil of sugar. You could bring that down to 10 mil and use a spiced rum, for example. That would work, but don't just swap in the spiced rum and keep the sugar the same, because chances are the spiced rums are going to have added sugar. They're going to be sweeter. Now, the next direction I want to take you is with this sugar. You want the sweetness. You want the 15 mil of the sugar, but there are other various ways to do it. And this is relate as a product. This will relate to the UK, but you will be able to make it around the world. Okay, you will. And I'm going to bring out this bad boy. Grapefruit sherbet. Now, what this is, because I'll be honest, because we don't really understand what oleosaccharum here is in the UK on a mass market, we know flipping well what sherbet is. They're basically the same thing, okay, in that. They've got a citric burst of like flavour, of zinginess that comes through. So treat this as a grapefruit oleosaccharum. And we've got other flavours. If you're in the UK and you've seen this, we've got a lot yuzu sherbet and a lime sherbet as well. See them as oleosaccharums in that. They're not the same, but for the mass market, treat them as the same thing. They are just citric forward. Now, doing a simple swap from your simple sugar, your 15 ml of simple sugar, to a grapefruit sherbet. Grapefruit and pineapple we know works exceptionally well in here. Grapefruit and Campari works amazingly well. We know that. So that is a great little twist for you. If you want to make a grapefruit oleosaccharum, if you can't get the grapefruit sherbet, absolutely do that and try that. And then the last direction I want to take you in is the juice. Of course, you can swap the pineapple juice. Now, of course, if you're not using pineapple juice, if you're not using sugar and you're using something slightly different, would you call it a Jungle Bird? You've invented a new cocktail, created a new cocktail in essence, but that's what most cocktails are. Most cocktails come from, most rum cocktails come from a daiquiri, rum, lime, sugar. Rum, lime, sugar. You've got it all in there. You are sort of breaking these cocktails out from the bare basics. So don't be frightened of doing that. There's no rule to say you can't create or can't swap out an ingredient. I would probably call this a passion fruit Jungle Bird, because I'm terrible at naming cocktails, or an exotic Jungle Bird or tropical fruit Jungle Bird. The other juice you could put in here is mango, but I do think that passion fruit and the tropical would be great shouts. Now, I'm assuming you can get tropical juice all around, all around the world. I'm actually going to make a version with this. I'm going to do my yuzu, my grapefruit sherbet and this in a second. It's just fantastic. So that's what I'm going to do. But hopefully that's given you some inspiration of different directions you could take. What I want you to do now in the comments is create your own Jungle Bird. What riffs would you do? What rum would you do now? Flavored rum. Would you kind of use a grapefruit as a sherbet instead of the lime, or an oleo saccharum? Would you swap the juice up? I'm kind of interested. Get the comments going. How would you recreate the Jungle Bird? So let's smash through my recipe. We want 22.5 ml of Campari, 15 ml of lime juice, 15 ml of this really zingy grapefruity sherbet syrup. I'm going to stick to the same rums, so 30 ml of Worthy Park Select, 15 ml of the rum JM. Then because this tropical juice has got passion fruit in it as well, it's got mango in it, it's got pineapple juice in it, apple, mandarin, pineapple, passion fruit and mango. So I'm just going to use that. I'm going to do 90 ml, so 2 lots of 45 mils. 8 to 10 ounces of crushed ice. And then after a quick flash blend, garnish it with a bit of mint. And if I was going to do a photo shoot, pick grapefruit, or definitely grapefruit because it's a grapefruit sherbet. You have got a fantastic, there's all these different flavors going around in my head at the moment. A fantastic riff on the Jungle Bird. Absolute, the grapefruit is the first thing that kind of hits me in there. It's playing beautifully with the Campari. You've got the bitterness. I will say it's not kind of as sweet. So, you know, for some of you, it's in sweetness terms, it's not a direct like-for-like comparison. 15 ml of this compared to the 15 ml of grapefruit sherbet, it's not as sweet. So, you know, you might want an extra 5 ml sugar just to balance that out in there. I'm going to do it. But for me, the zinginess of the grapefruit, it just goes beautifully with the Campari. They work together. The tropical juice in there gives you a nice alternative riff on the pineapple juice in the Jungle Bird. I don't know what we call it. Do we call it a tropical grapefruit Jungle Bird? I don't know what we call it. I'm super happy with this riff. Whack another new name on it. Put it on a cocktail menu. Honestly, this is delicious. I'm super keen to hear your riffs on the Jungle Bird. So get them in the comments below. Time to shoot another video. Hope you enjoyed that. Cheers.